2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Somehow You Didn't Die on Your Way to Work, a transit industry safety podcast. I'm Joe Zeta, and I'm joined by...
I'm Zach Librand. I am a semi-expert, but I'm here to entertain and have fun.
That is also why I am here. I'm coming to you from a different microphone this time. Hopefully it's better. We spent 20 minutes trying to figure out why it wasn't, and it turned out that Discord was not accepting my microphone inputs correctly, so now...
Joe spent 20 minutes trying to figure out how inputs work.
It turns out that when Discord has the default settings will change depending on what's plugged in, and I hate Discord for that. But anyways, so we are going on to our first topic, which is, of course, the news. And now we need to go in and see the first thing. So this is Wabtec.
What the fuck is that?
The Wabtec Maverick. This is a new doohickey that I had a very brief article in trains.com back when I was making the slides for this a couple of months ago, and I honestly have not heard jack shit about it since. But the very, very short version of this is that this is coming to take Zach's gerb, and it is what appears to be the leading truck of, I can only assume, some donor core of a Dash 9 that has a plow attached to it and a battery stuck on top.
Why does it look like something used by the Imperial Army from Star Wars?
Well, I mean, you can't sell it to the unethical and Southwestern, part of the Genesee and Wyoming system, unless you make it look evil.
Okay, this is true. Yeah, I mean, it has the appropriate appearance for something that is trying to put thousands of people out of work.
Yeah, I'm not entirely certain what the actual strategy of this is, because as one might imagine, the unions like BLET and SMART might go absolutely apeshit over this. I can see a purpose of basically trying to bust into the trackmobile market of like you sell this to a company that like owns a grain elevator, and so now their one guy on staff has a remote control instead of having to sit in the thing.
Well, that I think maybe that might be a good case. Oh, a good case.
It might be a good
that, but I mean, there's already a lot of trackmobiles that are remote controlled.
Yeah,
that are already in the market.
And also, it doesn't have road wheels. So what I'm imagining is this is basically they're trying to automate away the most ornery part of any business, which is the employees.
Yep.
Because how dare they want to get paid?
How dare they want to survive and have work?
But yeah, this is I have heard shockingly little about this, other than like a couple of articles. The reason why it's on a flatbed trailer in the upper picture is because they drug it down to the Pittsburgh waterfront or someplace in Pittsburgh to take pictures, which is honestly the most like Wabtec thing you could do is take the thing to like the most rail access. No, I like that it's like the most rail accessible city in the state of Pennsylvania, and you brought it there on a truck.
Oof.
That's either an indictment of Norfolk Southern or an indictment of Wabtec, and I'm not sure which one it is.
I would bet Wabtec. I'll bet you this thing isn't fit for interchange service.
It definitely isn't, but you could have at least put it on like a well car or something.
This is true. But then one of those evil workers might sabotage it along the way. I'm going to nickname this thing the Railroad Roomba because it's coming here to sweep up gerbs.
That's a really good one. Yeah, no, the evil Roomba is here to steal our gerbs. Even mine. I don't work in the railroad industry, but still, it'll come for mine somehow.
I mean, it knows how to get on a truck and get around, which really expands its range.
Mm-hmm. That's the trackmobile part. You need to also buy
Yeah.
the 6-axle trailer or expansion pack. So when you head shunt it into a siding the wrong way, you just drive it onto the trailer around the other end of the boxcar, and then it can go along its way.
Ah, yes, another groundbreaking solution that has already been figured out by rubber tires. Just put some fucking rubber tires on a thing. You know you want to.
Yeah, no, it's all fine.
This is another fantastic Wabtec product that I cannot wait to hate and loathe as much as I do the one that I already use. And that's, to be fair, that's a piece of software that I use, but I fucking hate it.
Oh, is it that trip economizer thing or whatever it is?
No, it's even more simple than that. It's software that keeps track of where you put cars. That's all it is.
Oh
I
no.
move cars around on there to show, I deliver them to this railroad, or I put cars at this customer, and it's the most trash software I've ever seen. It's to the point that years before I took the job I'm at now, um, my dad actually mentioned that he was looking at a job with Wabtec, and one of his former employees had gone there and was trying to get my dad to follow. And my dad was saying, yeah, apparently I'm going to be working on, or I'd be working on some software that the railroads use, basically for tracking car movements and allowing the self-reporting of car movements by train crews. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I, no shit, worked at the unnamed short line for about a year and a half before I realized that, oh, wait, this is what Dad would have been working on. And I immediately shot him a text and I told him, hey, I'm glad you didn't take that job, because I think I would have had to hate you on principle if you did.
Either that or he would have been better at and it would have been a better software. But
Entirely possible. Entirely possible. It would have been nice to have a fantastic in, but then I don't know how much freedom he would have had with that.
yeah, it only would have worked when you logged in. That's what it would have done.
Version number is user ID 12345. No, they get this version. Yes, they get this version that works.
Mm-hmm. It's you love to see it. But yeah, the railroad Roomba coming possibly to a short line near you, unless you're me, because I live on what is technically a Class 2 regional railway, and it is I would love to see 17 of these trying and failing to drag a 90-car manifest train up the hill near my house.
Oh, imagine the whine.
The noise would be outrageous.
It would be kind of hilarious.
Mm-hmm. I've never seen a lithium battery fire. That would be fun to see. Do you think these use lithium ion, or are these like something else?
Knowing how far behind railroad technology tends to be on everything, they're probably still on lead acid.
Oh my god.
And like if you
So
that bottom photo, you can see there's a little door on the front just to the left of the logo. I bet that if you went over some really rough track and you opened that door, there would just be water sloshing around the bottom of it. Speaking of which,
weighted down with some
I
concrete.
cannot wait to take this onto like the shittiest industrial track I can find on like a customer lead who the customer hasn't paid for track maintenance in the last 20 years because re-railing a car is cheaper than paying somebody to come out and fix it. Yeah. I cannot wait to derail this thing.
What I like is in the bottom picture, you can actually see that they've just found these like raggedy ass boxcars to move around. I think I'm enough of a foamer to recognize the old Lake Erie, Franklin, and Clarion logo on that one behind it, which is like
that
I don't know
is
what
more reliable than the Maverick.
Yes, I don't know what happened to the Lake Erie, Franklin, and Clarion, but I see their boxcars everywhere on CSX trains specifically.
It is weird how some of these like fallen flag boxcars still survive because a lot of people just kind of forgot about them.
Yeah,
or
no,
like
it's super weird.
Get is a different reporting mark, and that's it.
Yeah, what I really like is CSX freight trains always look like you dragged them out of a bog like 3 seconds earlier. Like they are, at least near me, they are the most like raggedy ass freight trains you have ever seen. Every single car looks like it is 9,000 years old. They're filled with crap. I have a picture somewhere of a gondola that is full over the top with forklifts going to a scrapyard.
They just threw forklifts in a gondola.
Like, and they were clearly just dropped into it, like from a
Okay.
crane.
All right.
And it's like
Gondolas
like
are
it's
versatile.
yeah, it looked like it was going to spill everywhere at any moment. It was hilarious.
Oh, I've got a customer that loads gondolas like that, and it's
Yeah,
always fun going
were-
in there and being able to tell them, yeah, no, fix this. We'll try again tomorrow.
but they were forklifts. That's
Yep.
the best part.
Yep.
Actual forklifts. That astonishing. Amazing. Anyways, we have to go on to the next news item, but first I'm going to check and make sure that OBS is actually working. Yes, it is.
Yep,
We
I'm
are in
still
fact
in.
recording.
Coming up on 12 minutes. I was a few seconds behind you.
Oh yeah. So let's see. Next news item. The North Star is dead. So, for those of you who don't live in Minnesota, don't you know? Basically, they have a very lightly used commuter rail system called the North Star, which appears to be a couple of those MPI dildo liners, plus God, they're like, what names are they? The MP36 something.
MP36I, I think.
You cut out for a second. Say that again. MP what?
MP36I, I think.
Yeah, that's what it probably is. But they have those. They have some of the Octagon commuter cars that Bombardier made. I love how I'm using all the technical names for these. Yeah, just get on board the dildo that's pulling some Octagons. But
thanks. Now I'm going to
these
say that in the future. That's going to be stuck in my head forever.
Good. Anyways, it goes.
They be hexagons?
Hexagons, octagons. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, they're 8. They're 8-sided. You have to count the top and bottom.
1, 2, 3, 4. Oh shit! Yep, octagons. My bad.
Yep. But yeah, so the it goes somewhere in Minnesota. I thought it was between like Minneapolis and St. Paul, but it apparently goes someplace else. If you can see on the furthest right image, it says between Minneapolis and Big Lake. Don't know where Big Lake is.
One of those, like, I try to stay in touch with transit in the U.S. I don't need an in-depth familiarity with every single one, but I at least try to be familiar with them, especially rail transit. It's my little niche. But this, and there's one in, oh my God, Music. Is it even still there? The Music City Star.
It's now the WeGo Star. WEGO, because I think the new operator renamed it. But yeah, I love the WeGo Star because it is baby's first commuter rail system. I have never even heard of the North Star before this thing closed down, or is closing down.
I have, but I feel like only because there was a photo of it in a book that I read a long time. Actually, it was probably the book I have about public transit. That's probably
in Minnesota.
No, not even. Like, it's kind of a review of several different commuter services. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now trying to find it, and I can't.
But
that sucks. But it talked about a bunch of commuter services specifically, and this one came up in the discussion.
Yeah, but apparently it was there, occupying some sort of commuter rail niche. It apparently was doing. There was a chart in one of these articles that just showed a dramatic downward, like, vertical line in 2020. I wonder why. It definitely hasn't recovered. it definitely hasn't recovered since then. So I'm assuming this isn't so much an indictment of commuter rail as it is that this specific system was designed for the 9 to 5 commuter class that has kind of gone away in recent years due to work from home and a general sort of like people moving to different areas now that like, they're like, well, I don't have to work in the office 100% of the time. I can move to someplace cheaper.
Those nine
Like,
to five commuter railroads, especially the ones that go like into a downtown area in the morning and then out to the suburbs in the afternoon and evening, and that is it. That is really baby's first commuter service right there.
you can just say Virginia Railway Express.
I could also say
We know
Sound
which.
Transit.
Yep. There's a lot of them like that. VRE. God, what other ones are there? There's some WeGo Stars like that. Presumably North
was like that.
Presumably that was what North Star did. Metro was like that for ages, but I think they've finally moved away from that into an actual like regional rail service.
I have been incredibly spoiled, and I had a bit of culture shock the first time I encountered one of these in the wild. Because my local commuter service owns its right of way entirely, so they run trains all day long. And the headways aren't great, but it is all day long.
Isn't TRE getting Stadler flirts or something?
No. TRE isn't getting Stadler flirts. TRE is actually getting some of the North Star equipment. So
some of the North Star equipment.
That Texas commuter line is the Trinity Railway Express. Would you like to know why they're getting more equipment?
Because Dallas is gentrifying at a huge rate, and that means everything must grow?
No. That's forethought. We can't have that. So they're only getting this in response to the fact that, quote unquote, Dallas is hosting some of the games of the 2026 World Cup. However,
that's why?
That's why. However, Dallas isn't hosting the games. My least favorite city in the U.S., Arlington, Texas, is actually hosting the games. For those of you who are not aware, Arlington, Texas is the largest city in the United States without fixed route transit. And the Trinity Railway Express gets kind of close to Arlington without getting in there. So the plan is to run a bunch of extra trains, including new used equipment from North Star, to the closest station, and then just having a fuckload of buses shuttle everybody down to where the game actually is. And it's going to fail. It's being held I look forward to the overtime that ensues because of it.
It's being held at Jerry Jones's mothership, right?
Either
the Cowboy Stadium
or the baseball stadium right next door, maybe both.
Okay, I can't wait to see how much that one weird managed apartment hotel I stayed in there goes for. However much it's too much.
Oh yeah.
For reference, I went down to Dallas a year or so ago and actually met with Zach then. I stayed in this bizarro hotel, and that's actually a managed apartment company called Casa. It was terrible. But it had a washing machine, which was nice.
It was a one-room on how studio. To get into the apartment is 3 pages. Something's wrong.
And it involved a Schlag lock. Oh my god, I could have just broken in. But and then other fun fact is on that same headline where it says TRE is getting some of the North Star equipment. The other party who is Amtrak, which this is hilarious because so you can see them in my joke headline, bus-shaped black hole and unusual aurora borealis now expected. The unusual aurora borealis is Amtrak's borealis because Amtrak is currently. So I don't know. Okay, so the trains article that says that did say that it was going to be Amtrak's Hiawatha service. But I don't think that they are going to be that picky with the pool of cars, because for anyone who doesn't know, Amtrak had a shitload of Bombardier built Horizon cars on their short distance services all over the country. They filled in on the Amtrak Cascades, on the Surfliner. They were always like the backup things. They were primary services on the Hiawatha service from Chicago to Milwaukee until the Borealis got introduced, at which point the venture cars from Siemens were numerous enough that the Borealis could take the Horizon cars, and the Hiawatha could be all ventures. And then somebody from Amtrak finally put one of these cars up on a lift for something. I can only assume it's sort of like, Zach, you wouldn't know this, but living up north, it's like when your truck makes a weird noise, and so you put it up on the lift and realize the frame is being held together by hopes and dreams. So that basically is what happened, and every single one of these cars is fucked. And having taken the Hiawatha once on a Horizon car, those things were not in good shape on the inside. Definitely the sketchiest train bathroom that I've been in, and that's saying something considering that I had just within the last 12 hours been inside a long distance Superliner bathroom. And it was not a pleasant, it was fine. It also was very school bus core in terms of like accommodation on that thing. But they were the vast majority of Amtrak's non-Amfleet stock for short distance trains like this, especially on state-supported things. So the Borealis is right now. I went to Chicago 2 weeks ago. I saw this train. It was 3 Superliners being topped and tailed by a P-42 and a B-40. That's what they were doing at that point.
Somehow it's still not Amtrak's shortest train.
No. Actually, I think hilariously, some of the state-supported services are longer, like the Saluki, which has to be 6 cars long because CN is a bunch of idiots. And requires them to have them be that long to trip the axle counters and weight sensors for crossings.
I tried to understand how that works, but I can't.
Like many things, I imagine that it is just one guy who hates his job so much that he's internalized it and just pushes it out on everyone else. But anyways, so these cars, the MPI stock, and neither does Metra, so there'd be no one around there to fix them. Amtrak is presumably going to get some of these Bombardier bi-levels, at which point they're going to go into service on the Hiawatha, which doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense because everything else is... They have enough cars for an almost all Siemens train. So it would make more sense... I think maybe... Because when I took it, they were still getting some in. I imagine that they probably have a backup train of... a backup train of Horizons, and now they probably have a backup train of Amfleets. Plus, for a while, the Michigan services were running with Horizon everything except for an Amfleet diner sticking out or cafe car sticking out the back like a sore thumb, which was really funny. It's like Bring on the Rainbow era Mark II. But I would imagine that this would probably be better suited to the Borealis, because the Borealis has been suffering from its own success in that the train sells out virtually every day. How
long is the trip on the Borealis end to end? Like how long does it take?
It's like 6 or 8 hours. End to end. It's
average journey time 7 hours and 24 minutes. You could not pay me to sit in one of these bi-level Bombardier cars for 7 hours and 24 minutes.
It's sort of the thing, but I don't know what the correct usage for this is, because the Borealis sells out. The Borealis needs more cars. Okay. Amtrak does not have enough money between the couch cushions to reactivate more Superliners. I don't know what... their plan
Maybe
is.
maybe if they save the seats on the bi-level cars for the shorter
Yes,
the shorter segments.
that's what I was kind of thinking that they would end up doing. Like maybe like they have like it'll be some cursed train set where it's like three am fleets, a superliner, and then a and or a venture car, and then these Bombardier bi-levels, and they like sort of seat people depending on where they're going.
I mean,
Which it could be like,
I've seen that practice of seating people by where they're going uh, on Amtrak in the past, but to to sort by the duration of that passenger's trip would be a hell of a challenge.
yeah, it might be. It might be like I'm thinking that maybe you could have like Chicago to Milwaukee be like one thing, and then maybe like people who are going from like Milwaukee to other destinations in Wisconsin and like just over the border in Minnesota. It's a whole thing, but I imagine they could do it. It also means that my joke in the well, there's your problem Discord server of long distance Amtrak Bombardier bi-levels being true. Alternatively, which is what I think might end up happening someday, and I would love to see it if it does, is one day this thing just rolls out of Chicago Union Station in push-pull configuration with the engine on the back, all bi-levels, no anything else, and it just goes off to Minneapolis like that.
I mean, that would be kind of rad.
That would be like maybe one of them gets converted into a cafe car.
There is a
But
possibility if they're getting excuse me, if they get any of the cab cars that I don't know what the situation is for getting power of one end of the train to the other currently, but it could help solve some of those issues like it does for, dozens of other commuter services.
yeah, and it means they don't have to top and tail the trains every single time they want to go anywhere. Because that's the other thing, they have to top and tail the Borealis because there's no place to turn it in Minneapolis.
Oh, that reminds me of the saddest little Amtrak train I've ever seen. The Amtrak 821 and 822, the Heartland Flyer, is two
You were
Genesis
thinking of
locomotives and two superliners, and that's it.
you one better. They did one of the I think it was like a Michigan service or a north of Chicago service that was I think two B40s with like a single coach or two coaches.
Oh, I feel like I've seen
That
a
were
picture of that.
I cannot for the life of me remember the name, and maybe I'm misremembering where the service was, but it did not go very far and for very long. But
Wasn't this
I feel
one
like
of them up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan or something?
I don't think it was in the UP. I think it might have just been in Wisconsin or something. Like it meandered across the border. Also, we're going on so long, we'll never actually get to the actual disaster because
Okay,
we've got
fine.
two. No, I would sit here too, but we've got two more news items,
Okay, fine.
which is so yeah, this one's relatively short and sweet. Baby's first streetcar that nobody liked is going away. The DC streetcar is going to be replaced presumably by trolley buses, according to this article in the Washington Post, Jeff Bezos' newspaper that definitely doesn't say anything bad about
I
Jeff Bezos.
I feel insulted by your caption. Like I feel personally called out by your caption here because when I went to
I've been to
DC
DC.
last
I
year,
didn't write it.
yeah, when I didn't write it either.
No, nobody did. That's the whole thing. Well, because they made it like fucking impossible to get to. Like there's a guy who does Secrets of the Washington Metro on YouTube. He does great work. He was he went from Union Station to the Union Station streetcar stop, and it took him 15 minutes and had to go through the parking garage because
Yeah,
it is over like the station throat
I
on
went
a
to Union
bridge.
Station for shiggles to go explore it and see what it was like to see an actual big busy station because I haven't seen one before in the U.S. and I don't remember seeing any signage about the streetcars. Period. End of
You
story.
really have to go the entire way through the station, all the way out the back, and then just like hunt it down. It's in the center of the road, in the middle of the bridge. It's terrible. Apparently, they actually had been planning to use an underpass that went under the tracks for Union Station or something like that. But the owner of said underpass was like, no, 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 no. Like you have to pay me more money than what you're offering.
Who the fuck
And
owns
they
this
couldn't.
overpass or this underpass that can say
It
no?
might have been the District of Columbia.
Oh, for God's sake.
I can't remember the specifics of it, but it was very dumb. It was very stupid. The routing itself didn't make a whole lot of sense either, but nobody quite liked it. You know, I imagine that this is it's really dumb. It's really dumb. The system did not work well.
These cars are 15 years old. At least the first 3 that were ordered for this service are 15 years old. And that's a little young to be retired,
so are the North Star train.
To be at the end of their useful lives. But
maybe Portland will buy them.
National Capital Trolley Museum, we have your next exhibit right here.
I was thinking that. Either that or maybe like someplace that does do it, like Portland or
I would
the Cincinnati streetcar with its two stops could take this. Double the size of their fleet by buying like one train.
Wait, is it
backup service? Cincinnati's terrible. Cincinnati, like, it goes around the block. I'm not going to look it up, but I don't remember it. It goes like around the corner or something stupid. It's in the exact same mold of we want to show to tourists that we're gentrified, so we're going to put a trolley down the street, but we don't actually have the money or the political will to actually make it do anything.
It's not that bad. The line is 3.6 miles.
The Las Vegas monorail is 7, to give you an idea.
Okay, but Las Vegas is its own weird little thing.
And we will talk about that very soon. But no, it's not. There was a whole swath of babies first streetcars. Most of them have stayed as tourist novelties. The DC streetcar just couldn't because they built it in some place where neither locals nor tourists could use it, and it just did not go very well.
Dallas Area Rapid Transit would buy some of these and snap them up and have actual streetcars instead of the weird hybrid things that they bought from Brookville.
Maybe Cleveland will buy them. They're looking like just as backups. That would be funny.
I mean, their system. I'm in the brief Googling I just did. The Cincinnati connector was based on the Portland streetcar system, so they're probably the right platform height.
Yeah,
this is always the big thing.
Yeah, tracks in Portland could use these. Sound Transit in Seattle. Toronto. I mean, Toronto could probably shugle these things into using trolley poles or something, or whatever the fuck it is they do.
I think they're finally on pantographs.
Are they now?
It didn't happen until the 21st century. I do remember that.
I remember that the new whatever the new Toronto streetcar is had to come with trolley poles for dual mode operation.
Oh yeah, that was a
but yeah. Bit. So
all right.
So yeah, on to the next section, which is all Zach.
Last one. Hey guys, do you like financial instability and insecurity? Because the tariffs are fucking weird again. Trump applied a bunch of tariffs with a start date sometime soon-ish. Each one seems to be a little bit different. A federal court today ruled that the process for establishing those tariffs was unconstitutional and thus blocked them, and then an appeals court said no, and put them back on again. So the market continues to be fucked. Nobody wants to invest in the U.S., and nobody really wants to trade with the U.S. because who can figure this out?
Yeah, and to clarify a little bit on what you're just saying, the appeals court was not hearing. was hearing it just on whether or not, like, they just issued a stay so that they could process the appeal that they're allowed to do. But fascinatingly, the next move was like, we're just going to jump this and go straight to the Supreme Court, which is going to be fascinating to see if they actually do that.
Clarence Thomas is going to fail us all yet again and either release like a 2-sentence ruling or opinion or just not say anything about it at all.
Me want RV, Clarence Thomas's ruling, interpreted as a yes vote for should Donald Trump be allowed to do whatever he wants.
These tariffs make my gifts more expensive.
Oh no, but all the RVs are made in Indiana, so actually that's fine.
Where are the materials from, though?
Don't worry about it.
Okay, all right, that's how this works, right? It's ultimately made in America, so that's why it's cheaper, and that's why this is going to work.
Don't worry about it. It's made in America. What's that? The same RV industry that put notably defective tires on RVs for like 25 years. Did you ever hear about that?
No.
Oh God, this was a thing. This was a thing for like almost 10 years. Goodyear developed a really heavy duty tire that for the big commercial truck chassis bodies, the ones that like just get shipped with a motor and go off to a coach builder, and they were for low speed delivery applications. So above like 65 miles an hour, they started to delaminate. No. And what happened is that Ford sold, these were put on these commercial chassis, or they were sold individually, and they were put on RVs, and then you had blowouts at 75 miles an hour on the interstate, and these are retirees who had never driven something this big before, and they crashed and died, because you have to remember that this is an apartment on wheels that has like the crash rigidity of a building made of sheetrock.
And you can drive it with nothing more than the same driver's license that qualifies you to operate a smart car.
Yeah, like in actuality, a motorcycle requires more training than these things. But that was maybe 7 or 8 years ago that this all came out. I don't remember what happened. I don't remember who got yelled at over that. It might have been everybody, but I know that Goodyear was involved because they
there's another rabbit hole I'm going to have to go down tonight.
Yeah, it was on. This is back when Jalopnik was still good. So if you want to start, it's probably there. God! Don't get me. Don't get me.
Go ahead.
Don't get me started on the car blogs. It was because it happens in like a pattern. Like it's like a sine wave. Like one of them gets really good, and then someone buys them, or they just were owned by someone to begin with, and then they start shedding everybody who was ever decent, and then they just sort of fall into this pit of like uselessness, and then you have to go find the next one. Went from the Jalopnik to the Drive. I think now the Autopian is the one everyone follows. It's like, Jesus Christ, guys. Media is dead.
So
long live media.
I will say that if you need car info, if you're not aware, just go find out which outfit Victoria Scott is most involved with and read those articles.
Yep. And I know a bunch of people who... I'm in the car community where I am, so I know people who write for Jalopnik, because Jalopnik is, I guess, kind of good now. Again, I've contributed to the photos to the Drive's military subblog before, which that was actually a train-related thing. I got some pictures of dummy Russian military vehicles being moved by rail to Alaska.
Ooh.
On Norfolk Southern. So they were just sitting out there right in the middle of the yard. It's like, is that a Buk missile launcher? It was. It was fake, but it was a Buk missile launcher. There's a company in Virginia that makes dummies of these things, and they put them on trailers, and they just, I guess the military shoots at them. There was also a Tor as well, like one of the big ICBM carriers. You can find that. It's on the war zone somewhere. But
now I'm realizing that I'm not following Victoria Scott on any kind of social media, and I want to see more Victoria Scott stuff. And I just found out she lives relatively close to me and holy shit, I want to go like get an introduction to cool cars with Victoria Scott. This is the dream now.
You could also just have me give you an introduction to cool cars. I know.
Yeah, but I can't drive to you and back home in a day.
That's fair. It took 2 days for when we did that. For when I did that, we stopped. We drove home. I stayed in the Memphis Bass Pro Shops pyramid.
I remember mentioning that.
Yes, you can see the sand. You can see the trolley that they have in jail from the restaurant on the top floor.
Oh, the San Diego trolley.
Memphis bought a San Diego trolley and it's in jail because it didn't work right. So it's just behind a fence. But anyways, speaking about Russia for a second, going back to what I was talking, today's theme, as we continue on, is about tram derailments. And what does tram derailments have to do with Russia? Quite a lot. So this is today's first.
I'm going to argue this.
Russia. What does Russia have to do with trams? They have some.
Yes, they do.
This is the best segue I could think of in the heat of the moment. So today's accident, as you might be able to tell by the image on the screen, is the 1996 Dniprodzerzhynsk tram accident. I apologize to anybody who lives in Ukraine, just in general, but also specifically for this.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try. This is the town formerly known as D-Town. That's what I refer to it as. I'm not going to try.
Yeah, I know Dnipro because that's the river. Zerzhynsk is what I think, and I think the D's are silent. But in any event, Dniprodzerzhynsk is essentially the Ukrainian version of Parkersburg, West Virginia, or any of those town. It's any of the towns along the West Virginia-Ohio border, along the Ohio River in Appalachia. It's basically where God forgot about this place, so the chemical companies came in. Like
Bhopal.
Not like Bhopal. Bhopal was a very big, flashy disaster that everyone knows about. Parkersburg is a town where there's a major chemical plant, like right down the road, and they totally don't have plastic and PFAS in the water still. Like this is these places where like there's a shitload of forever chemicals just buried in the ground. Multiple USCSB that
forever.
A Superfund state, basically. It's like these very poor, very rural communities, very blue collar that if they try to ever elevate themselves, just a hand made out of chemical goo will pull them back into the ooze, like Tasha Yar on the first season of Next Generation.
Too soon. All right, man. Too soon.
And so, Dniprodzerzhynsk, now called Kamianske, is kind of like that. They were a huge metallurgical and chemical hub in the Soviet Union back in the day. And I gotta say, if I get anything wrong, I'm trying to read translated versions of Russian language Wikipedia to learn about this place. And one of the big things they made was yellow cake uranium. So I'm willing to... Nuclear bombs.
Oh, fuck. And oh, Jesus.
Nuclear bombs and nuclear energy, and it's highly radioactive. It's highly radioactive. It's highly toxic. It's used in nuclear energy and nuclear bombs. I think more so nuclear bombs than energy. And I'm willing to believe that absolutely no safety precautions were taken other than this will not kill Ivan instantly.
Don't touch it for too long. Put some leather gloves on. All right, that's it.
So one would have to believe that the city is basically contaminated. And that was before, current events trademark symbol where Ukraine basically is now a war zone. I had to actually look. Well, I haven't heard of Dniprodzerzhynsk before this, which means that it's not an active war zone. I think it is very, very close to the front lines, but those change frequently enough that it seems like it's been unharmed.
It's eastern Ukraine. I think that's pretty much all a war zone. Maybe they just kind of got skirted temporarily. But I'm not versed in the war in Ukraine.
As far as I can tell, there hasn't been a lot that happened there in terms of frontline stuff. Because they're on the, on the Dnieper that goes through Ukraine, which is kind of like a natural break. So I don't think that's like as far east as we're thinking it is. So,
Well,
but anyways, they've probably been shelled.
Biased. I look at this map and I know that it's hundreds of miles, if not thousands, across Ukraine. But then I also live in Texas, where like a 9-hour drive is just.
I recognize some names like Mykolaiv, but that's closer to Crimea. I think it's fine right now. Anyways, as per a lot of second-tier cities in the Soviet Union, they had a very well-developed tram network, and so their tram system was populated primarily by, but not exclusively, the KTM-5 tram.
I love these things. These are so brutal and utilitarian.
They are. These are not the iconic Soviet trams. Those would be, I believe, the Tatras that were made in the Tatras.
Oh, these are like knockoff Tatras.
These are knockoff Tatras, I believe, although technically even the Tatras were knockoffs of the PCC cars. So 1940s American engineering still applies here. Or 1930s even. But basically the KTM-5, and we'll get more into this in the next couple of slides, was very much a plastic fantastic. Cheaply made, here for a good time, not for a long time. And then what happened is that it maintains here. It is still here for a long time. They are still here now. They are not having they are having the best and also the worst of it. But
with lessons learned applied to builds.
Yes, we have learned things, but not without great cost. So these trams are, as with many things from the Soviet Union, they were built from 1969 to 1992. In the effort of being very light, so they could use lightly made tracks, they were built almost entirely out of plastic, at least in the bodies. Yeah, they were mostly plastic. It still are. It's mostly plastic bodies on top of steel frames, which is actually going to play into the incident that happened that we're talking about. But they're not.
Scanned over this entire fact in the preparation of this show.
I think they went somewhat to metal in construction in later ones, but even still, it's mostly a body-on-frame construction made almost entirely of plastic. They were very robust, so they went with all electric controls, no air brakes, no hydraulics, nothing really to go wrong there, and had very long service lives. Some are still operating today, again, mostly in second and third tier cities. But it hasn't gone well for them. They're definitely not as easy to maintain as some of the Tatras are, because KTM is short for the name of a manufacturer that I didn't write down, because of course I didn't. And the KTM, and they don't make things like they didn't make a lot of them, and they are still around, but I don't think they make trolleys. No, wait, I'm wrong. They do still make trolleys, but they've made newer ones. So they don't make these, and parts aren't as available. But they're still chugging around. They're still going through just the absolute worst conditions you have ever seen. They had many issues early on, as a lot of things do. Not a lot of information is available because this was like 1970s Soviet Union. But there were failures of the braking system. There were fires. A lot of things like that. I think the doors had some issues too.
You don't need those,
Just
though. We have windows.
just general teething problems with a new thing built in a country where the smart people either ran away or were shot.
Well, with everything new, there's going to be teething issues. It can't be that bad.
So anyways, so these kind of just went on. There were a couple of issues with some of these running away, but not a whole lot really wrong with the system, with the cars or anything. Not that I could find. There were some accidents later on where, like, in the 90s, kind of like this one, where, like, I think one of them ran away and crashed into a wedding party that was, like, making its way down the street and killed some people. So, which, happens to the best of us, runs over a family.
Well, I mean, whomst amongst us has not had
Yeah,
a runaway streetcar run over a family?
Yeah, and then this is something that you're going to have to help me with a little bit, Zach. This is like the control system and the motors and bogies. Despite volunteering for a trolley museum, the Northern Ohio Railway Museum in Seville, Ohio, you should come visit us. We operate trams on every second and fourth Saturday of the summer. But anyways, I don't know as much about operating trams as you might. All I know is that the picture at bottom left seems like it's not a smart idea.
It's okay, so it's not bad. It's not a bad idea. You have to be a little bit more cautious when running with standing water, but you're not going to fry anything until you get water high enough to actually touch the leads that connect that basically connect the motors to the power lines. But these cars were built to be all electric. I have a very loosey-goosey understanding of this, and it's my understanding that the primary mode of braking was dynamic braking. And what that is, for those who haven't encountered this before, dynamic braking is when you take those motors that you feed the power into to make the tram go. You take those motors and you tell them, okay, we're not going to put power into them. Instead, you're going to generate power. And when you do that, it causes a bit of physical resistance, and it will actually slow the tram down. This is a widely used technology, even to this day. It's fantastic. But the issue is that it only works down to a certain speed. And once you get down below a certain speed, the turning motors cannot generate enough resistive force to continue to slow the vehicle down, whether it be a tram or your big 2-mile coal drag that you might see in the US. So below a certain threshold, it kind of depends where that threshold exactly is. Kind of depends on the manufacturer. Usually it's going to be somewhere below 5 miles an hour. The dynamic brakes stop working. And from that point, a lot of tram manufacturers will then have the tram go to air brakes, and brake pads holding on to brake rotors or pushing onto the wheels directly, some sort of physical force creating friction to slow the tram down. If I understand the one source that I found talking about this correctly, it would use dynamic braking down to roughly 5 miles an hour, at which point it would then use a physical friction brake that grabbed onto the axle.
Okay.
I think, don't quote me on this.
Isn't there also a magnet or something?
So we will get there. That's not a regular service sort of thing. Right now I'm looking at regular
Okay.
service. You know, you come up, you see somebody standing at a stop and you want to pick them up. How do you get there? There is a little bit of more gentle, little bit more controllable friction braking that slows the tram down. Now, as for the magnet, that would be what you see in the top left photo. You can see the two wheels with the white walls, which is oddly cool. Even
It's
on
it,
even on a tram,
The Soviets did have a sense of weird style, but worked
they
for them.
did it. It still kind of slaps. But you can see those two wheels, and in between those two wheels, you can sort of see a truck and some miscellaneous gear for suspension and ride quality and whatnot. But there is that darker gray block that runs almost the whole width between the two real wheels and sits right above the axle, and that is a track brake. Um, the track brake uses an electromagnet to hold it off of the rail, and when you either lose power or when the operator either hits a switch or stomps a pedal down far enough to activate the track brake by choice, it cuts current to the track brake and thus forces it with a couple of springs to push down on the rail. And that is a very harsh stop. But a harsh stop can be the difference between an accident or another hour's worth of paperwork and maybe an hour or two of delay while there's an investigation and cleaning up a wreck.
Yeah. So so that's basically how it works. This picture of the tram wading through the water is kind of like a worst case example of what a lot of Russian and Ukrainian cities are kind of going through with these things. Because there's just been no real money for public services since, and I'm going to go to the next slide now, the fall of the Soviet Union, which happened in 1991. This has been widely regarded by some people on the internet as a bad move, but at the time it was widely celebrated, and many people still think it's a good thing. I will not be hearing criticism or questions at this time about that.
Fair point.
But yeah, so this is now in terms of what this means for this story. This was disastrous for a lot of Soviet bloc countries, most notably what was referred to at the time as the Ukraine, because the Ukraine, not nowadays where we actually call it Ukraine because we have to acknowledge it's a real country, the Ukraine, because a lot of their economy was based on not relevant economics anymore. Like, you weren't making things to just be sent off to Yekaterinburg or Vladivostok or Moscow or whatever. You weren't making nuclear bombs or anything anymore, so there was no yellow cake uranium. Like, it was a whole thing. So a lot of these places went, a lot of these countries that just sort of went away. Their economy sort of faded away to nothing, and just extreme poverty set in. This definitely happened in Ukraine. This happened in Poland. This happened in Czech Republic, in Bulgaria, in Hungary. Czechoslovakia split apart. The Yugoslavs had a violent.
Czech Republic at that time. Holy shit.
Yeah, the Yugoslavs had violent separation of their constituent countries. Albania is still like this. You know, there's a lot of things that happened in that sort of vein of just there's no more communism, and also there's nothing else, because you have to remember that when there's not a firm government, capitalism does make its way in, but it's in the venture capital style of exploitative capitalism where everything is for sale and it doesn't really matter who gets hurt. For more on this, see the documentary film Lord of War featuring Nicolas Cage. And basically, so for what this meant for Dniprodzerzhynsk is that things went downhill. I don't want to say in a hurry. it happened. It went downhill for the whole country, but it basically meant that things got less and less funding, less and less anything. There certainly wasn't public works funding. There certainly wasn't funding for anything else. So
You will make do with what you have, and you will be happy.
you'll be glad that you're doing this much because there's always some poor fuck who's doing worse than you. You know, I hearken back to the old Russian saying, you know, man finds a fish that grants a wish. He's like, whatever I do to you, I will do unto twice to your neighbor. It's like, please take one of my eyes. Like, that's the sort of Russian mindset that we're dealing with. So just be glad, you will be glad that this is only what is happening to you. And I'm not going to say much more on that because I don't really understand the Eastern European mindset, and I don't think I really want to. But
yeah, this is well out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah, so we're going to switch to the next slide, and so you can see a map here of this is the current tram system in Kamyansk. Kamyansk. I'm not 110% certain how many lines they had. I think it was 7 or 8 during the Soviet Union, but in the 1990s, they definitely had at least one more, which if you advance the slide one, Zach, is line 2A. So if you can see on the screen, you've got line 2, which basically starts out at Ploshka DMK, which is, I think, the big metal works there, and then sort of meanders its way all around to a big loop at the south end of town. Because, again, Kamyansk, Dniprodzerzhynsk is a huge town. It's got like over 100,000 people, if not 200,000 at the time. Still is fairly big. Although I can't find whether or not they break this down, if there's like how they account for metro area versus like just the city itself. But there's a lot of people there. And so line 2A essentially ran the length of line 2 until it got to Doroshenko Avenue, which I think has been renamed into... Oh, no, it hasn't been. But it hasn't been. A lot of things got renamed in Ukraine during decommunization in the early 2000s. So if I get any names... What?
I'm trying to find Route 2A. Where are you?
It's not on there. You have to... I drew it in. You have to click the spacebar to advance the slide to the animation.
Ah! Oh. There's more.
I used formatting.
Oh,
there is no line 2. So I had to draw that in, but basically it would then go down Doroshenko Street to an intersection with line 3 and then reverse on its own course and go back to the start. The top left picture is actually the intersection with line 2A and line 3. And the car in the center of it, car 1044, which looks just great, is actually the car that we are going to be talking about in the next slide. Car 1044, definitely having seen better days, was clearly operating a line 3 service on this day. But, you know, this was in like 19... What?
Is that a 3?
Well, the intersection is line 2A and line 3, so it can't be anything else.
Looks like it's literally says 2. Or is the roll sign broken? Because that's also the roll sign possibility.
The roll sign could be broken. They could be detouring something. I don't know. This does just happen.
So much fun.
I do happen to know for certain that this is the intersection of line 2A and line 3. Line 3 goes off for a distance in the direction of the other tram car that's going away from the camera. This was taken maybe 1994, 1993, because some people went and foamed the former Soviet bloc as soon as they got the chance. And some people did that for trams, because of course they did. And so I found this image online, and it's like very, fortuitous. But anyways, the this and so then we have to look at the top right at the top image, the Google Street View image.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
That hill
What's
looks
up?
kind of steep.
That hill looks incredibly steep, and that's
not going to be a problem, is it?
Oh, well, if you've got functioning brakes and a well-maintained car, absolutely not. That is not going to be a problem at all. So
Good. Glad we got that cleared up. So that's the episode. Y'all have a good night, everybody.
Yeah, you have a good night. Definitely. There's absolutely nothing wrong. Don't worry about it. What are you, a cop? But so there is but we are going somewhere with this, which is that this went very, very poorly because these trams were not in good condition, and there was no more money in Dniprodzerzhynsk. And so all of these trams were in a state. And better yet,
right?
No.
Oh.
Of better yet, tram 1044 was apparently known to be in dilapidated condition, but was apparently functioning. It moved and ran, and so this
and you will be happy.
And so there was apparently a shortage of cars that day, because again, getting into like the Eastern Bloc mindset, nobody owned cars in the Soviet times unless you were really important. Nobody could afford cars after the fall of the Soviet Union unless you were really important. And so everybody still commuted either on foot or by tram, or maybe if you had a horse, something like that. That's why you still see people commuting by horse cart in former Soviet countries, because they don't really have any other way of getting around. And there's not always money for a car. And so there were a lot of people waiting for this tram as it meandered its way, which, by the way, this picture shows it with another car. That did not happen. This was a single car service at this point in the day. This was late afternoon on the 2nd of July, 1996. So again, it's hot. Everybody's probably suffering a little bit, but because these don't have air conditioning, of course.
Hell no.
That would be bourgeois.
The top part opens. That's good enough.
Yeah. Air conditioning is a bourgeois concept. Suffer like a real communist. But anyways, the tram trundles its way along. I believe that the driver was either very inexperienced or a solo trainee who was being sent out by herself anyways.
Oh, hell yes.
Like, she was very young.
Confident in you.
She was very young. She was very not, like, just by inexperience, by virtue of, like, being in her 20s, as opposed to, like, didn't know. And so whatever was going on with the tram sort of escalated as it approached Doroshenko Street. At this point, at least 150 people had crammed on board the car.
Ooh.
Which I'm going to just go back a couple of slides to the one where we're actually talking about the KTM-5s. The interior of these cars, if you want to take a look, is not that big. This is 1x2 seating with a relatively wide aisle.
So more places to stand people.
Yeah, this thing was crammed, and something else to note, the doors on this slide, they don't like fold. They slide open and shut with a chain drive. So if the doors aren't opening, then your shit isn't going anywhere. So, but it's not going anywhere. You aren't getting out either. If you aren't like yanking on that thing.
I figured that a slide door would be a little easier to operate than
I
a
am not.
folding door, but also they probably had electric motors on them, which
Yeah.
can be tricky.
Mm-hmm. It was. I'm not certain. Well, okay. So what happens after this point is a little bit disputed, depending on what source you believe, and there are multiple different sources online. And I've gone to the next slide now, Zach, just the one with the fun little drawing on it. So, actually, just to clarify, the street actually was going through my notes. The street is called Chapeva Avenue at the time. Chapeva, because that was a communist name, so they changed it at some point. My mistake. But anyways, so the tram began down the hill and rolled through the first stop on the hill without stopping. Naturally, the passengers were displeased about this, and then it continued through the next stop and the next stop and began moving much quickly.
Is this not the express service?
It is not. They did not have express services. Be lucky that you got a tram at all. The driver is 20 years old. The driver is like the driver is very young. Nothing is working. Just be glad that the train itself is moving in any way, shape, or form. We will be making every stop, comrade. And so anyways, it continues down the hill, and depending on which source you read, either everybody on the tram was more or less silent. And I don't know whether that was out of fear, shock, or like generally not understanding what was going on, or it was absolute bedlam. Like absolute, we are going to die. I am getting off this thing right now. Like in a complete reversal of the Paris fire, where they did not realize what was going on until until the smoke was entering the station. According to those transcripts, people had forced the doors open and were jumping out at 55 miles an hour, like that sort of thing. The car was trailing. Yeah, the car was trailing people down the hill as they leapt for their lives. Again, I don't know for certain which one it is. Whether it was a silent, we have accepted death sort of thing, or this was the holy shit, what is happening? Maybe it was a mixture of both. Maybe just the crowd of people surrounding that particular survivor accepted death, but the ones in the back were hammering on the door with their fists until they bled. So not 100% certain, but in either event, this the building at the end of the hill is getting a lot closer, a lot faster. This is a school. I don't know if it was in session. I don't know if this was a specialty, trade school or something, or if it was just an ordinary secondary school, but it was definitely there. You can see in the little red bubble I've drawn that there's a memorial. That was not there at the time. The train did not crash into the memorial for the tram accident. Would have been really weird if it did.
Boy, that's a weird thing to just erect right there at the bottom of the hill.
But the tram continued down the hill, and you can see by my very lovely drawing there that the blue lines, which indicate the two running tracks, which, again, by the way, tram infrastructure in the Soviet Union was so complete that they actually gave them dedicated right-of-ways inside residential streets. So the street's off to one side, and then the tram tracks are actually beside it in a sort of dual carriageway configuration.
We lost the war to the Soviets because they have such better public transit infrastructure. We lost that war.
Yeah, that specific the space race we won, the trolley race they won.
The trolley bus race they won too.
Oh, the city of Dayton would like to dispute that.
Okay,
But
well, one.
Dayton, Seattle, and also the Illinois Railway Museum. It's about it. But
what was at the bottom of the hill where that memorial is right now?
As far as I can tell, concrete blocks, maybe.
Oh yeah, that's not going to be an issue.
Like it wasn't even like anything big. It was just like a Jersey barrier or something. Maybe. Again, not entirely certain if this was like a Jersey barrier or a bus shelter or just like a curb. Like whatever it was a couple of feet high.
Yo.
Like clearly supposed to prevent like an automobile from driving straight through because Yevgeny's had like his 17th vodka and you know he's only good for 15. like that sort of thing. So like Yevgeny is trying to get to the place on this Google Earth screenshot just called Chum. That I don't know what they sell, but presumably it's a SpongeBob reference. But in any event, whatever was there, the tram hits it. And this is where the body-on-frame construction comes into it, because the chassis of the tram stops. The body of the tram does not.
What?
The body of the tram separates from the frame.
Ooh. And
just continues on. Once this time, all the sources are in unanimous, trailing bodies in its wake as it sort of like I guess it sort of like flies across the street and into the center divider. I'm not sure how far it went. The photographs do seem to show it in the median of this much bigger road of Enoshina Avenue, but I don't know if that's like that or if it made it all the way across into the school grounds. But in any event,
it seems like it kind of landed just on a few feet on the other side of the barrier.
Yeah, and I have gone to the next slide now. In any event, bad things happen. Bad things happen very quickly because essentially 150 people are thrown on the ground like dice on a craps table at 55 or 60 miles an hour. Maybe even faster, because this was listed in kilometers an hour, and I didn't think to write down the conversion. But it 70 kilometers an hour, so it was doing about 45. That's 43 to 45.
Pretty far to be yeeted out of a tram.
Yeah, and so what happened was 34 people died, and over 100 were injured. And
that'll happen when your plastic tram launches you into the school.
And not shown in this photo is the stacks of dead bodies that the Soviet Union the Ukrainians just piled up.
Do y'all remember that last episode where we said we accidentally came across a bunch of photos of dead bodies? They fucking published photos of a photo that must have been taken within minutes of the incident happening, because there are still just people stacked up around this thing. It's not here, but it's out there.
Yeah, this was a very bad accident. This is one of the deadliest tram accidents, just period. And it was, this was like, so Wikipedia says the 1954 Zagreb tram accident killed 19 people. I'm not sure if there's any that happened in, the battle days of wooden interurbans killed more, that just nobody cared about because it was on like the bumfucking East Nowhere. That was about it. This was the high watermark in terms of killing your passengers, and and it was really, really bad. But quite naturally, because this happened in Eastern Europe in the mid-90s, nobody really cared.
Nobody knew about it.
No, they publicized it. This was after this made it onto the news.
Yeah,
The news showed the stacks of dead bodies too. It's just that no one gave a shit because they literally, I used, as an American who has grown up through the Iraq War and Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom, I used the phrase "Somewhereistan" to talk about places that nobody cares about. This was the OG Somewhereistan.
Really?
Nobody gave a shit. Nobody cared. I'm sure that some guy in Dresden was like, well, they shouldn't have been communist then, or something, and then put down his paper and considered how he was going to best gut LTU. Or, no, Interflug. Interflug. How he was going to liquidate Interflug or whatever. And then, and then just went about his day. So, but, it just sort of wasn't a thing that anybody cares about. And we can sort of hear about this if we go on to the aftermath slide of what was learned, which was actually nothing. I tried really and truly. I did everything short of emailing the wartime government of Ukraine, asking if they had a copy of the accident report, because the only thing I could find online was about a 3-sentence summary on a 1-page document that was on the official Ukrainian government website for such government records that said the brakes failed because of poor maintenance.
Yep.
So we don't know why this happened officially. As far as I'm willing to guess, there was probably a battery backup on the tram that didn't work. Nothing further that I can really glean from this. Absolutely no real lessons were learned. The big takeaways from this was line 2A was discontinued entirely. The Chapeva streetcar line was removed entirely. That's why in the Google Street View image a couple of slides ago, there wasn't even tracks in the weeds. That was pulled up. The three-way, the T intersection the tram crashed off of is still there because I guess they just didn't feel like taking the switches out of the ground. But the tracks go 15 feet into the weeds and then stop. Dniprodzerzhynsk removed all of its KTM 5s from service and went with newer KTM cars, or I think they had Tatras at that point. They might have gotten some from somewhere, and they just started running those. But generally, nothing was learned. I put down here, perform basic maintenance is not a lesson, because
We know that.
they didn't have the fiscal ability to perform basic maintenance. I went through my notes while I was looking for a different fact. 70 of the town's 134 cars were inoperative at this point.
Okay.
You can't do anything at that point. That is like you need palliative care at that stage.
You're running on hopes and prayers at that point.
Yeah. I'm sure things have gotten better now. I didn't actually look what they ran nowadays. I probably should have, but it doesn't matter. There's no the 1990s Ukraine was not going to implement changes. 2000s Ukraine was not going to implement changes. They didn't start getting on their feet until the 2010s. Really. I'm sure they're doing better now, but
Oh, that hurts.
did we learn? Okay, I'm sure they're doing better before the war. From 2010 to 2022, things were probably on an upwards trajectory. And if we were pretending that this didn't happen, that the war wasn't happening, I'm sure they'd be fine. But I don't actually pretend to know what's going on in Dniprodzerzhynsk. I should probably Google what's going on in that town. Well, because I don't.
Shit, what's it called now?
Kamyanske. I hope that's how it's pronounced. History. During the Russian invasion of Ukraine Almost 12,000 people from the surrounding areas were temporarily evacuated due to active hostilities. By 1 September, the number had increased to 35,000. So there's an active diaspora of just people from Kamianske. I have no idea what's going on now. But, yeah. Oh, there also, in 1979, 2 Aeroflot passenger jets collided in midair near the town, killing all 178 people on board.
These poor bastards have just the weirdest
Average
life.
Aeroflot experience. Aeroflot, notably an airline that once had a fatal accident because the pilot bet the co-pilot he could land the plane with the curtains closed.
Oh, dude, no. Oh.
He lost the bet.
You don't say.
He also died. So I think
He really lost the
it's an all-rounder. But
God damn it.
But anyways, so I think now we go to you for the segment called "But Did You Die?"
So we're doing better than the last episode. Let's go to the next slide because no, you did not die because a lot of people learned lesson from this incident in D-Town and several other incidents across the world. And that lesson is fail-safe brakes. Fail-safe brakes are better. Fail-safe brakes save lives. Fail-safe brakes are idiot-proof. All right? If they're on there, you have to take steps to get them to release. And they're very deliberate steps. So, what's up with this photo of a very classic boxy buck-tooth Dallas area rapid transit LRV doing over here? And, what's that caption say? It is stranded in South Dallas after getting pwned by a Lime bike. For those who haven't had the misery of experiencing Lime bikes, they were rental bikes that you rented through an app that could very easily have their locks bypassed. So you pay for a few minutes to unlock the lock on the bike's back wheel and then disable the lock, and now you have a free bicycle that you can do whatever the fuck you want with. So,
Lime bikes were actually the original form of the Lime scooters.
Yes,
they still do that in Europe.
They've actually come back to Dallas. Lime scooters got banned for a little while, and now they're back somehow. I don't know how.
Of the rental scooter companies that really don't need to exist, I like Lime the best because their scooters are bigger.
I have noticed that. They're kind of beefy boys.
Bird and Spin are like, what if we strapped a motor to a Razor scooter, and they're terrifying.
But do they have the geofencing capability that Lime Scooter does now that will shut off your scooter if you try to ride on one of the perfectly safe streets or sidewalks that happens to go underneath a freeway that you shouldn't take the Lime Scooter onto?
I don't know, but I do remember at least once I rented one of them from one service or the other where, because so many people had just abandoned the scooters wherever they wanted to, that you weren't allowed to return it except at designated areas.
Let's just put in a fucking dock at that point.
And so it just didn't, nobody cared. I used it once and never did again.
I tried one. I didn't pay for the service. I found one somebody had left at one of the stations that was forcefully unlocked. And that thing, I don't know if it was supposed to or if this was an attribute of being unlocked, but goddamn, that thing zipped.
Yeah, I've seen people eat shit on them before. I saw one guy almost get his teeth knocked out outside the Indianapolis Amtrak station at like 1 a.m.
I almost ran over a guy with one of these light rail vehicles because he tried to cut across right in front of me and did it at a very shallow angle. Got that front tire wedged into the flangeway. It was downtown. There's street running, so there's bricks and pavers right up against the rail. Got the front tire wedged in the flangeway and just ate shit, and I had to hit the panic button and do a real hard stop.
Oh boy, the Lime Rider did not get pwned by a train. Unlike what happened to this Rowlett bound service that it ran over a Lime bike?
So on February 2nd, 2018, let's take a look at this next slide. The the object in question that looks like a crumpled piece of trash was a Lime bike. Um,
I love that the animation. I made the slide rotate, but the circle did not. I didn't realize the circle was a separate element.
Oops. Well, we're learning, folks. It's a work in progress, just like my microphone. I'm sorry for all of our audio files out there. You're gonna have to suffer with this for a little while longer because a certain shitty investment group decided that my wife's job was no longer relevant, so we're now a single income household. But anyway, I'm not butthurt about this at all. This rental bike was forcefully ejected in front of a train. And when I say that, I mean that a couple of little shitty teenagers, being shitty teenagers, thought it would be hilarious to throw a bicycle out in front of a train. Nobody on it. It's fine. They're right. It was kind of funny. But when they did, that Lime bike won the fight. It doesn't look like it did, but it won the fight. On the underside of those light rail vehicles are the main reservoir air tanks for the air brakes, the whistles, and I think that car, what was the number of it? 206. That car still had air-powered doors on 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the 5 doors on each side. So it went underneath the train, went underneath the main reservoir that holds all the air that allows the train to keep moving, and made contact with a little valve, an automatic valve mounted on the main reservoir that goes off every now and then to allow condensation to spit out. That valve is important because in Texas, at least in the Dallas area, it gets swampy as fuck. Swampier than it has any right to be, considering how far away we are from the ocean. And condensation builds up in those tanks rapidly. But if you just knock that valve off entirely, it actually opens up a hole in the side of the reservoir. And then the reservoir isn't a reservoir, it's just kind of a funnel to the outside world.
So, from the perspective of those shitty kids, they throw the bike at the train. The train makes an almighty noise and stops directly in front of them. They must have thought the driver was getting out to beat their ass to death.
And you know what? You're not wrong. And what happened to further confirm that theory for the kids was the driver did open up the window and start screaming at them. I was relayed with this entire story because when this train hit the bike and it ripped that valve off of the main reservoir and all of the air pressure dumped out and the train was forcefully stopped, it was forcefully stopped because it has fail-safe brakes. The train recognized and was physically incapable of releasing the brakes at that point. That train was not going to move on its own. So, who should be on the train following this but your host, the one and only Zach. Zach gets wrangled, gets voluntold by the dispatcher that night to rescue this train. And it was an interesting procedure. So let's go down to our last slide and we can start talking about what we had to do. I had at the station prior to where this incident happened, I had to unload all of my passengers. I then had to go through a specific procedure to pass a red signal that was otherwise stopping me from just slamming into the back of this train. there's a good infrastructure failsafe right there. It was a procedure and a policy that kept this safe, and that was the only way I was able to pass a red signal to get to this train. I then had to couple up to said train, and these have automatic couplers that when I bumped them together, the main reservoir from my train tried to equalize with the main reservoir of this dead train that I coupled up to. So because there was a big hole in the main reservoir of car number 206, my train was then temporarily disabled. So how am I supposed to move it? Well, the failsafe does have a workaround, but it is a very intentional act to get around this failsafe. I had to get out of the cab of my train, get underneath the cab that I had been operating from, close a valve, just a little butterfly valve that stopped the flow of air from my car to the damaged car. And then I had to walk around the disabled LRV and one by one disable the brakes on all 4 trucks. And there's
But you had to bleed the brakes.
Sort of. It was these have kind of a weird, funky system. I don't fully understand. I know it wasn't quite bleeding the brakes. It was forcing them to release in a different way. I'd have to contact one of my friends that still works in the mechanical department to find out. But it disabled the brakes and kept them from coming back on again until somebody wanted them to. But this procedure to disable the brakes required me to walk around the entire car and do 4 very specific things that you can't do on accident to disable all of the brakes. And then only at that point was I able to push this car the last, I don't know, 3 miles or so back to the closest yard that had a repair facility that could handle this. But it was a safe operation along the entire way because this car had fail-safe brakes that could only be disabled with some very, very specific actions. There was no accidentally flipping the wrong switch and instead of turning off the heater, I disabled the brakes on the train. No. It was a very planned and coordinated and thought out process. And this is the sort of thing that we see on trains all over the place today. And that's what keeps it safe. These trains would also, if they lost power, they would go into emergency braking. So we get a big Texas storm and a substation goes out, that train stops. There is no losing control of it. You lose control, but only in that you can't make it go any further. But this is the good part of what we learned. There were no injuries in this incident, even with the hard stop, and I think that's partially credible to the fact that, if I remember correctly, this happened at roughly midnight, so there weren't that many people on the train anyway. And that we had a safe operation to get that train off of the main line and to a place where it could be repaired. And repairs are an important part of this whole process.
Basically, you did everything that the Paris Metro Fire guys didn't?
Pretty much. Coordination, communication, and job briefings, talking to everybody I was working with, who's doing what, when, and who do we need to talk to before we do any of this.
So yeah, so you did it all correctly, and you did it all properly.
Yeah, and we actually got it done in a decent amount of time because I paid attention in class and I remembered where all of those specific things that let me cut out the brakes were on the first time around. I've heard this happened every now and then. Brakes fail. Things get thrown on the track. I saw a similar incident happen with a shopping cart once, and that train was stuck out there for I don't know, a good hour and a half while the poor dispatchers desperately tried to explain to an operator on the radio what they had to do. And that operator just completely forgot everything they learned in class and could not figure out what to do. I'm trying not to give too much away so that nobody could go out there and know that, oh, well, if I just hit this, the brakes don't work.
Yeah, do not use this information to commit a domestic terrorism.
You know,
Drive a tanker truck in front of the train if you want to do a domestic terrorism. That's much easier.
weld a bunch of
Semi
Titan concrete to your bulldozer.
Yeah, semi trucks are much easier to steal.
Yes, they are.
They don't even have chip keys. It's not easy. It's not difficult.
The older it is, the easier it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say that.
Yeah. But yeah, that is
a very uneventful event. Besides the hilarious story of the operator screaming at the kids as they ran off into the darkness of South Dallas.
Yeah, they've probably got a story to tell.
Oh, they're going to tell that one for years, and I would too if I were them. That's, like I said, it was a little bit of a pain to deal with, but it was kind of funny.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that was episode 2 of Somehow You Didn't Die on Your Way to Work. We will be back next week, weeks, months, however, whatever interval we decide to do this podcast at. And I don't know, not going to be next day. We're not doing daily episodes. Holy shit.
Oh, no.
But,
no. I need you guys to know that I work for a freight railroad. I am fortunate enough to have a set schedule, but within that, every day is an adventure. I don't know. I know when I start. I don't know when I'm done.
Oh my god. But yeah, that is it for this episode. We will be back indeterminate period of time here for the next one, which will be on a different subject. And with that, I must bid you all adieu.
Before I go, I'm going to ask if you have any crazy transit stories, please send us an email. I believe the email is swddyWW@gmail.com. If it is not, we will have the correct one in the show notes. What did you see or experience on public transit that was wild? We want to know. I want to analyze this. I love doing this stuff.
This is always very fun. I'm interested in hearing your public transit stories too. What is the wildest wackadoo shit that has ever happened to you?
All right,
it better not involve bodily fluids.
I will say, don't send us your story about coming across a guy jerking off on the train. I'm sorry you had to experience that, but that is just such a common thing on public transit because Reagan decided we don't need mental health care in this country, that it's not going to make the show.
Yeah, send us the time that the train drove off with the doors open or something.
Hell yes, I want to hear that one. Tell me that one.
Why
did the
door
interlock not work?
Yeah, actually, that happened to me. I was on the New York subway. I went the entire way from Manhattan to Brooklyn with one of the doors open on a subway train.
What the fuck?
It's New York City for you, I guess.
That is some New York City subway shit right there. But that's all I've got. Thank you all for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Yep, catch you on the flip side, everyone.
Bye.